Hello children, hope you are all fine and safe. First I would like to congratulate you all for submitting your class test on time. The correction is still going on. Soon I'll be posting your results. In today's class, we shall start a new chapter from history, that is, ancient civilizations of the world. In today's class, we'll be learning the following topics. That is, 4 river valley civilizations, the Egyptian civilization, contribution of Egyptians to the world, the Nile Valley, life after death and mummies. Now let's see about 4 river valley civilizations. The 4 river valley civilizations are Egyptian civilization, Mesopotamian civilization, Indus Valley civilization and Chinese civilization. Among these 4 river valley civilizations, we discussed in the earlier chapter about Indus Valley civilization. In detail, we have discussed about Indus Valley civilization in the earlier chapter called Ancient Civilizations of India. In this chapter, Ancient Civilizations of the World, we'll be learning about Egyptian, Mesopotamian and Chinese civilization. And in today's class, we'll be learning Egyptian civilization. Now let's see which are the rivers were supporting these civilization. We already learned Indus Valley civilization was supported by Indus River. The Egyptian civilization was supported by Nile Valley. The Mesopotamian civilization was originated in Tigris and Euphrates Valley. The Huanghe River supported Chinese civilization. So these are the ancient civilizations of the world. Now let's discuss in detail about Egyptian civilization. The country Egypt is located in African continent. The northeastern part of Africa, the Egypt country is located. River Nile. Generally, we have seen all civilizations have originated in the river plains. The Egyptian civilizations could take birth due to the presence of the river Nile. And the relics obtained here proclaim the grandeur of Egypt. And it has huge pyramids, sculptures, temples, and the inscriptions in these temples tell us a lot about Egyptian culture and history. You can see the river Nile, which is extended to 4,000 miles throughout Egypt and made this land fertile and prosperous. Now let's see about the contributions of Egyptians. The Egyptians were expert farmers. They had built temples. And more importantly, they invented the calendar. The Egyptians created 365 days calendar. The Nile River flooded at the same time each year. So, the Egyptians counted the days between the flooding and created calendar. Apart from this, they had mastered the art of writing. It was a symbolic language. These Egyptians developed a form of picture or symbol writing known as hieroglyphics. It consists of a small drawings and has been called hieroglyphics. The word hieroglyphics means sacred writings. So they have contributed a lot in irrigation. They invented calendar and they had given a symbolic language to the world called hieroglyphics. Now let's move on to the Nile Valley. The Nile River is the longest river in the world. Over 4,000 miles it covers. It served as a source of food for the people of ancient Egypt. It was a major source of water for bathing and drinking. The Nile was crucial for farming in this region. The Nile River is considered to be the heart of Egypt. Every rainy season, the Nile River would transform the Nile Valley into the huge lake. After the valley dried up in summer, a fertile layer of clay soil would form the grazing field and neighboring agricultural lands. The work that would need the labor of hundreds of peoples was being done by the kind river all alone. The Nile flooded every year, leaving behind dark, rich soil that was good for farming. The area which is mentioned, which is darkened in green, was called black land. Because of the color of the soil, we used to call it as black land. This fertile land provided food and labor for hundreds of people. In Egypt, not all agricultural regions were in the valley. Hence, small canals and wells were created to support the agriculture in other places rather valley region. Thus, the river valleys, small canals and wells supported the agriculture, and they were responsible for the development of a complex system of the irrigation throughout the land. Now let's see about the people of Egyptian. The prosperous, wealthy Egyptian peasants and citizens during their leisure engaged themselves in the creation of artistic work. These artistic works may be like painting, pottery, sculpture. In all these things they have engaged. And the role of priest was created to interpret nature and to explain about it. The priests were scholars and shouldered the responsibility of protecting written documents. And these people were believing the life after death. Now let's see about the ancient Egyptians, how they were believing the life after death and mummifying the dead bodies. Now, life after death. The Egyptians believed in life after death. They believed that man had to give an account of his deeds on earth to Osiris, the most powerful god of life and death. Osiris' green skin represents rebirth and regrowth. Life on earth was considered as temporary. Thus, whole of the Nile Valley was reserved only for the dead. Now let's see how they were mummifying the dead bodies in the next video.
The ancient Egyptians believed in several rituals in order to reach the afterlife, into the next world, and achieve immortality. Death was seen as a temporary state, and a dead person's spirit needed a body. So to preserve it, a process of mummification was used. This process and quality of the mummification varied depending on the person's status and wealth. The highest ranks in society got the best method of preservation after they died. Firstly, the body was washed in water and salt. The brain was then removed and discarded, using a hook through the nostrils. The body was then slit open and the organs were removed, except for the heart, which the ancient Egyptians believed would guide the person into the afterlife. The liver, lungs, intestines, and stomach were kept and placed in 4 canopic jars, one for each organ. These jars each featured a lid sculpted as one of the sons of Horus: Hapi, who protected the lungs; Duamutef, the stomach; Imseti, the liver; and Kebeseneth, the intestines. The body was then filled with myrrh, cassia, and other spices, then sewn up together and packed with a special salt called natron for up to 70 days, which prevented the flesh from rotting. After this process, the body was shriveled and dehydrated, so the embalmers would stuff the empty body with sawdust and linen to bring it back to its original shape, oil the skin to soften it, and add false eyes and a wig to make the corpse more lifelike. A resin was used to cover the body to prevent mold, and then the whole corpse was wrapped in layers of linen bandages. A face mask was made to look like the person, then was placed on the head of the corpse, and the body was placed into a wooden case, or if the person were rich, a stone sarcophagus. Mummies would be buried with items they might have needed for the afterlife, including jewelry, clothes, furniture, even pet cats and dogs who were mummified as well to keep them company. The less expensive method for the middle classes, or those who wish to avoid the expense, involved the corpse being injected with oil taken from cedar trees, liquefying the internal organs. It was then packed with natron for up to 70 days and given back to the family. The Egyptian embalmers were so skilled that even today, people that were mummified thousands of years ago still have some recognizable features.
So this was a method how they were mummifying the dead bodies. What are mummies? Now let's see. What is a mummy? A body of a human or animal that has been ceremonially preserved. How did they ceremonially preserve? The entire body would be smeared with various chemicals and wrapped with a thin linen cloth. The dead body which was preserved and protected in this way was called as mummy. It would be kept in a specially designed coffin. The grave was considered the true place for an Egyptian. Hence, all around the dead body, items needed for daily use and small dolls of a cook, barber would be kept to fulfill all future needs. Now, did you all understand, children, about mummies and life after death? Let's move on to question hour. Now it's a question hour, children. Are you all ready to answer? Shall I ask you the first question? The first question is, Egypt was called as gift of Nile. Why? The answer is, Egypt is known as the gift of Nile for the following two reasons. The first reason is, Egyptian civilization developed and flourished on the banks of the river Nile. Except for the narrow strip of the fertile land along the banks of the Nile, rest of the Egypt is a desert. Second reason, annual floods in the river used to deposit rich, black, fertile soil on its banks in which farmers grew crops. The water from the Nile was used for irrigation and transportation of goods across the country. Because of these two reasons, the Egypt was called as gift of Nile. Now let's move on to the second question. Are you all ready for the second question, children? Good. The next question is, mention the contributions of Egyptians to the world. What were their contributions? There were three contributions we have learnt. First one is, they were having a good knowledge about irrigation. They had good knowledge about irrigation. The first point is, they had good knowledge about irrigation. And the second is, they invented calendars which helped us to measure time. And the third one is, they had mastered in the art of writing. The symbolic language which they have used was called as hieroglyphics, which means sacred writings. So these three were the contributions of Egyptians to the world. Now let's move on to the third question. Who interpreted the nature in Egyptian civilization? Very good. The priest interpreted the nature in Egyptian civilization. Here, the role of priest was created to interpret and explain the nature. Understood? Now let's move on to fourth question. Who was called as God of life and death? Very good. Osiris was called as? Osiris was called as god of life and death. The next question is, the last question, why did the Egyptians preserve the dead bodies? The answer, the Egyptians preserved the dead bodies because they believed in life after death. Did you all understand, children? Today's class, did you all understand? Did you answer for all the 5 questions? Very good. In today's class, we learned 4 major river valley civilizations, Egyptian civilization and their contribution, Nile Valley, life after death and mummies. And about mummies, we have seen a video about mummification. Okay? And in the next class, we'll learn about pyramids and fall of Egyptian civilization. Until then, learn this class properly, see the video class again and again, read through the textbook, write the homework and submit it on time, write the classworks promptly and neatly. Thank you, children. Until then, bye-bye.